to take you through. I know I have been the town historian for the past 35 years, and I have not seen such an undertaking of the restoration of the house in this village of Monroe. We know two endangered properties in the village, the Roscoe Smith House and the Smith Farm in Gilbert Street. And we need that done when someone steps forward to restore a property such as Rest Haven, where we have to do everything to stop them. Most communities would welcome such an undertaking. And I hope this can be done. Thank you. Sorry, my mouth is a little dry.
Do is reserve the testimony of the architect and landscape architect in the minutes. We will supplement the record. I understand the late time. I'd like to get the public's here, their comments, so then we can wrap it up. If you have any questions for any of them while they're here, we're certainly willing to allow that. But I do understand the late hour and let the public be able to express their concern.
Thank you very much. Okay. So you can reserve your witnesses, but for now, I'd like to open this meeting up to the public. So if any members of the public have any comments with regard to the application, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and try and keep your comments brief.
Want to go first, please, so she can go to bed. Thank you.
Okay.
My name is Dawn Salka. My daughter Colleen Salka, 24 years old, deaf, blind, cerebral palsy, 25 Water Road. I want to tell you for the records, I called up and asked for an interpreter. I had two other deaf individuals coming, and I was told, no, it's not required, and they're not going to provide us one. Spoke to Elizabeth on the phone. Okay? So state that for the record, and we're required to have an interpreter.
We did get your request.
The two other deaf individuals would not come because they needed one.
Can I
Sure.
just interject? We did get your request this morning. We called the New York State Committee on Open Government. We spoke to one of the foremost authorities on open government about whether or not we needed to provide an interpreter for sign language. And he advised us that it is not a requirement of the municipality, that as you as a member, you can bring somebody in and they could interpret for you, but as a municipal body, we're not required to provide an interpreter.
Not true, but okay. ADA Title II. Okay. All right. Anyway, we're not staying long enough to hear all of the other comments from the people, but I would love to hear why they don't want you to have this house here. Is it because you're scared of them stealing? You don't want people drooling, rocking on the front porch? Are you scared that they're going to steal from you? And I would love for you to meet my daughter. I would love for you to meet her. But if you choose to say no, or all of the negative comments that maybe you're going to have, please come to her face later and tell her that we don't want people like you living here with us. That's the end. Good night. To yourself.
Okay. Anybody else? Please come forward. Hi.
My name is Mona Rubenstein.
Mona
I
Rubenstein.
live on High Street.
Next one.
222 High Street.
You're right next door to it.
Right next door. How are you? R-U-B-E-N-S-T-E-I-N. Thank you. My name is Mona Rubenstein. I reside at 222 High Street with my husband Bert. We've lived there for 32 years, and our 3 children grew up in a home. I was a business educator for 19 years at Monroe Woodbury High School. The property adjacent to our home at 236 High Street was purchased in September of 2016 to a limited liability corporation owned by Mr. Mitz. From the time he purchased our home in July of '85 and until Mr. Mitz bought the home at 236 High Street, We always maintained an excellent relationship with our neighbors. For decades, 236 High Street was maintained by AHRC Group Home that housed adult residents with disabilities. Even though it was a group home, it was organized as a family home with an average of 5 to 8 adults at a time and 3 to 4 live-in staff members and a weekly visit from the psychologist. There was never an undue number of cars going in and out at all hours of the night. A bus would come in the morning and took the residents to an occupational schooling and returned them at 5 p.m. at night. The home was maintained with gardeners and maintenance workers. They had a vegetable garden and would bring us vegetables, and we would bring them leftovers from the temple services on Friday nights. Our daughters would even visit and do the nails of the women who resided next door. Even though new houses were built on High Street, it remained a residential street, free of commercial properties and for-profit interests. Mr. Mitz intends to change that. Since purchasing the home at 236 High Street, Mr. Mitz has posted a large plastic sheet sign on his property, which was against the law, advertising the restoration and preservation of Rest Haven Incorporated. Signage is not allowed on residential streets. In addition, without permission from either the town or his neighbors, Mr. Mitz hosted on prom night photo sessions. He didn't just invite the seniors and their dates, but family, relatives, and friends. Hundreds of people turned out, vehicles lined both sides of High Street, creating a traffic nightmare. If an emergency vehicle had to get up or down the street, it wouldn't have been able to have gotten through. Cars had been told to be turned around on people's lawns and in their driveways, directed by workers from Mr. Mitz's fiasco. Importantly, Mr. Mitz doesn't even have a student that went to Monroe Woodbury and had no reason to invite the senior class to his property, except to drum up interest in his commercial aspirations and have their parents return the favor of coming out to support the change in a variance law. It's very clear what he intends to do to use his property for commercial purposes, despite the fact that he and his associates have long known that the land is zoned for residential use only, and it must remain so. The residents of High Street vehemently object to any change in zoning of 236 High Street and have signed a petition, which I'd like to turn over to the board, stating our objections. As long-time residents, we have concerns about the type of commercial interest in the middle of our quiet residential neighborhood would decrease property values, cause significant traffic problems, and invite a stream of non-resident visitors all hours of the day and night. Moreover, Mr. Mitz previously indicated an intent to operate a nursing home or elder care facility, but of course, as you know, not exactly sure what he'd like to do with this property. Not only would this affect property values, residential neighbors, but it would disrupt the use of enjoyment of private homes. A nursing home would necessarily result in noise disruptions caused by ambulances running in and out from the property, as well as excessive visitors to the home. Further, a nursing home requires around-the-clock employees who will be arriving or departing the property during workday and evening hours. In summary, a zoning change from residential to commercial use will create a host of problems to our neighbors, such as ourselves who have purchased our homes in expectations that we would be surrounded by actual neighbors and not businesses, strangers, or excessive noise and traffic. Given the significant taxes paid by village residents, it's simply unfair and incredibly unreasonable to ask that we give up our quiet neighborhood so that Mr. Mitz can make a few bucks. If Mr. Mitz or his partners want to reside at our property as their home, we welcome them to the neighborhood. If they don't, they have an option to sell the residence to a family that understands that they will be living in a loving residential area where their children can walk to the park, libraries, movie, theater, village shops, ice skating in the winter on the pond, fishing in the pond in the summer, enjoying the concert, the fairs, the fireworks of our village, just like our children and our grandchildren love to do.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Bye.
Any other members of the public? Please, come forward. Okay.
I'm not going to be a problem by a long shot, but I do have
You
something
don't have to be
say.
polished, just let us know your feelings.
Okay. I'm Patricia Schappinger. I live at 2 Chatham Road. My name is on that same thing from Mona.
How do you spell your last name?
Finger.
Are you the one that sent the letter?
No.
This is Lux, okay.
Okay. Okay. I've listened to a lot of things tonight. I have to say, first of all, my husband and I moved in to Chatham Road back in 80-81. We've been longtime residents. We had the residents on the home. We've never had a problem with them. They came, they did what they were doing in their yards, whatever. They came out. We were very friendly with them. My children were very friendly with them. And I think there's nothing to be said about someone with disabilities or anything else. This has nothing to do with that. This has to do with, we live in a residence. We live in a residential area. We had the home, which was a residence. We're not looking for a commercial enterprise. We are not looking for someone to be coming from wherever to visit. I don't mind whether or not it's a historical site. We walk through the village of Monroe and we see historical sites every day. And I walk through Monroe and I love it. But I want it to be where people walk to it, where people respect the fact that I have a home and other people have homes. I'm not looking for people to come and it to be a recreation and a fun facility or something like that. Nor am I looking to see some of the uses that I've heard ascribed to this use variations, okay? There is no way, shape, or form that Monroe should be even contemplating this kind of thing at this time. We need to, first of all, understand that in this community, we need to have a comprehensive idea as to what we would like our community to be, not just to stand there and cavalierly say that we can open it to anything or anyone. And having someone tell me that because something was done once upon a time, that it should be kept again, or that someone has a hardship because they've spent money to enhance something. That's the same as anybody coming in and doing a flip on a home. I have a lot of people that stand there and say that they're going to buy homes so that they can flip them and get more money. That's fine. You want to do that, you take the chance. If you lose, you lose. If you win, you win. But you don't stand there and ask everybody to assume the cost or whatever because you want to do this. Now, the use of having more or less occupants. It said up to 12 people allowed to be there at that. I have no problem with 12 people being there. I have no problem with having 6 rooms. I do have a problem if those are open to now having the 3rd floor or the 4th floor or something else suddenly appear. I do have a problem with having this facility start to take in people that are, if I may, not a senior citizen, because this is what the approval or the recommendation was, to have senior citizens in need of assistance, okay? I've had people, and I've worked in nursing care facilities. I know what it's like. I know that you have to have people there all the time. I also know that it is not always as easy to facilitate taking care of those people. We cannot stand there and say that what we have with these adults is only going to be that. It's not going to give them the return on a commercial property that you're talking about, because I know how much I paid for my own parent to be in a nursing facility when I couldn't care for her anymore. Those kind of things do not make for good neighbors. Having someone, if you're saying that you're going to have 12 residents, it's just not working that way. Not with the amount of money that you've been talking about. You also talked about an extended visiting. Are we going to have where adults who are grandparents are going to have children visiting and staying for a period of time? And if so, do they get to be an extended family living on that facility? If so, that is not the recommendation, that is not anything that is allowed in a nursing facility. All right, I think that's about it. All the rest of it is basically redundancy, so I'm not going to do that. But I am going to thank you, and I thank you all for just listening. Hopefully, I want to say again, I am very strong in my feelings as to being fair to everyone. But I will also say this, when we stand here and we talk about a facility, we need to have a facility that is basically, if we want a nursing home, and we want to say that we need a nursing home, then we should not be doing it in a historical setting. If we want to do this as a historical home, that would be a wonderful idea to do this. And I definitely think it should be. But I also think that those historical homes have criteria that have to be met. And a group home and a historical home are just not conducive to being the same thing.
247 High Street. We've lived there since 1985. You know, like my neighbors, we had very pleasant relationship with the AHRC over many, many years. There was never a time when there was an angry word between us and them, and anybody else that I knew in the neighborhood. You know, they were a welcome part of the neighborhood. And we were happy that that was a residence run by a reputable organization, nonprofit, for the benefit of the residents there. I must say, I'm very uncomfortable with the proposal for a business for profit in this neighborhood, both in general and in specifics. On High Street, there was a property that was a veterinary hospital at one point, a doctor's office at one point. If you grant this, what is to say that those people don't come forward and say, we want to be able to run what used to be run in those properties? You know, that we have a residential street, but where do you draw the line? Once you open the floodgate here, do we then have a doctor's office? Do we then have a veterinary hospital? What do we have left? So, in general, I have a problem with your granting this variance for a business, which I really don't have for a nonprofit. You know, I think there's a basic difference there, and that nonprofit, and run by reputable organizations is something that we've all lived with, and we've all lived with very happily. The specifics of this worry me a lot. We've had Mr. Mitz say he's not going to operate this. He's going to have somebody else operate it. But who is he going to have operate it? Is that somebody at arm's length from him? I don't think so. And that means that Mr. Mitz is in control of this. And he has, by the sound of things, been a less than pleasant neighbor to his neighbors. And finally, this business where you move in, you buy a house, You had to close on property that nobody had bought in a decade. And, you know, been on the market, nobody bought. And then you find out that you can't just establish a business there. This is a hardship of his own making. This is not a hardship that a reasonably prudent person would have been in the situation of having. You know, and there was I don't see the hurry to buy a house that hasn't moved in a decade. You know, that argument just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't make sense. I mean, if somebody has lived in this house for a decade, and then they have a financial hardship, that's a real financial hardship. But if somebody has lived there a month, or 3 months, or 6 months, this is a hardship of the human making. This is not a financial hardship that has much credibility, at least in my mind. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Can I just ask you something?
Yes, sir.
One theme I've been hearing is basically, it seems that the neighbors like the people at AHRC, were somewhat against this facility. What were the differences? Did they go out to work?
Yes.
You know,
No, there is no difference in the terms of the residents. Well, I don't know. If we're, I don't think there's a concrete proposal about how this house is going to be used. And that really troubles me. Who's going to operate it really troubles me. You know, I haven't heard who's going to be there, but if there are people who are going to require constant medical care, then the inside of that house is going to get torn up for, you know, for medical equipment, apparatus that require a great deal of monitoring and electricity, you know, all sorts of things. But more than that, I think the thing that troubles me is moving our neighborhood from a residential to a commercial. And that's what opens this gate, because what do you say to the next guy? You know, what do you say to the owner? You know, somebody says, well, we want to reestablish it as a doctor's office. How do you deny that? How do you accept this and deny that?
No, they're separate circumstances, and, you know, you can't compare the two until you're faced with the situation.
Yeah, but I mean,
It sounds like what you're concerned about is the fear of the unknown.
well, we're concerned about the known very much, but we're also concerned about what happens next if you start allowing commercial businesses on this street. You know, I live on this street, but I paid a lot of money for a facility elsewhere to run my business. You know, it's not.
I know you gave us your address, but would you mind just for as a spatial, just for me to figure it out, relative to this house, how many houses up or down do you live across the street?
One house across the street.
So you're right across the street.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
So my name is Pete Effinger, E-F-I-N-G-E-R. I live at 2 Chatham Road. The Rubensteins and our property, but as my wife said, we moved in 1981. So we're here 36 years. I have no problems with senior citizens. I'm one. I have no problem with senior citizens' housings or facilities. Both of our parents lived to their 90s plus. And in the latter years, we had to utilize those facilities. There have been noises over the years with respect to the properties and so forth and so on. That's not a problem. So let me say to you guys, the board, it is not uncommon for two people, you being one and us being another, to look at a problem, analyze it, and to come to a different solution. Both of us may think we're right. I may think I'm right. So I came here to listen. I didn't come with any notes. I didn't come with any pre-decisions. I came to listen. So I'd like to share a few things with you about what I heard and share my opinions with you about what I heard. First, your records are not the void. They are what they are. For whatever reason, if I'm correct, in August of 1977, a CO was issued, and some things happened. Just so happens, there's a home that's in our community that has residents. Up until recently, it was sold. It was not sold with an attachment to the deed or title that this is what you can do going forward. So the buyer of that property, like the buyer of my property, if there's restrictions or there's nothing that says you can do something, such as what's carried on, you just can't do it. You have to come before the zoning board and make it plea. I'd just like to share with you, no deference to anybody, certainly the chair, speculative was a good word. It was a very interesting word. It is and was, it was and is a good analysis of everything we've heard. I'm not sure what's concrete about the plans. There seems to be so many variables. I don't want to deal with zoning, splitting it up. That's not the issue before you. I don't want to deal with a bed and breakfast in the church. That's not the issue. Perhaps an implication, perhaps a threat. What's before you is a piece of property that's looking for a variance to the zone. And it happens to be for profit, as we're told. Maybe its next application, if you disapprove this one, will be for something else. So this was an investment that may or may not have gone bad. It may or may not have been good. I'm not a lawyer. I don't answer or understand the legality behind some of the points some of yous made. I'm not an accountant. But if I was, I would have analyzed everything. I would have looked at the numbers. I would have decided what my gross receipts were, what my operating expenses, what my net after that is, what's my P&L, what's the payback. I might have decided I had to put $200,000 into it to make it look a little decent. That's fine. Don't come here and ask for forgiveness because you made a bad investment. Don't come here and change the zoning because you knew what it was. Nobody forced you to sign that contract. Nobody put a gun to you and said, if you don't sign, you can't close. So we do know a few things. It didn't sell in 2008. I don't believe, or not, that it had anything to do with the fact somebody was asking $1.3 million. It just didn't go. I could have sold my house for $300,000 more in 2005 and 6. And then March came and we got hit. That's life. That's the way it works. Sell somewhere down the road, bite the bullet, just like people who bought homes in our community for $390,000 a very short period of time ago. And they're short selling if they want to sell tomorrow. So they have to bite the bullet and stay with it. As to Zillow, Zillow's being sued, perhaps I stand corrected, for hundreds of millions of dollars for producing bad numbers. All of a sudden, your house next door goes for $223,000, and in 2008-9, my house drops $125,000. So I live next door to the house that lost $125,000 in 2008-2009. That's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. It was simply a bad investment. As to the zoning, I'm not going to get into the letters that should have. The point was made. You heard our opinion, you went forward, and you made a decision. And that's that simple. So I would urge you to not approve the application for a variety of reasons, some of which I shared with you. Thank you.
Thank you. She had written to us last year in June when the application was first on. So I'm going to read both of the letters into the record. Dear Mr. Baum, I live at 6 Chatham Road, Monroe, which is located in back of 236 High Street. I received a notice that a meeting is scheduled for June 14th to review the interpretation of our code enforcer, Mr. Cox. Unfortunately, it will be difficult for me to attend the meeting as I don't drive and I am a disabled senior. After reading the letter, I agree with Mr. Cox that this is an SR10 zone. The applicant hasn't given enough specifics as to what the property would be used for. My concerns are noise, traffic, garbage, and other issues that may become a concern if this variance is approved. High Street is already a high-volume area for traffic as people use it as a shortcut to the businesses on Gilbert Street, as well as other residences off High Street and Cromwell Hill Road. I'd like to know exactly what the population would be housed on the property, how many residents and staff would be living there and for how long, what type of activities would be happening during the day and evening. I lived in this house since approximately 1975, and I'm very familiar with that property. The group that was housed there for many years were away during the day at work placements. They lived as a family according to our SR10 code, not as an institution of sorts. I believe we do not have areas set aside. I believe we do have areas set aside in the zoning code to provide for the non-specific uses that were mentioned in that letter. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And she reiterates her point in her letter of July 6, 2017, along with her concerns relating to the story in the photo news. This will be entered into the record. If anybody has any interest in it, you have it, right? Okay. Anybody else from the public have any comments that they wish to address to the board? Nobody?
Can I just close on before you, just very briefly, not to reiterate. We heard a lot of comments, we understand people want more information. I just want to clarify a few issues I've heard. Number one is this for-profit versus non-profit. One of the principles of zoning is it's the use of the property, not who uses it or what uses it. So all of these comments about whether someone is going to make a profit, non-profits charge, they charge the people, the taxpayers pay for that group home. It's a wonderful use. I support group homes. I live near a group home. It's great. ARC is a wonderful organization. But you saw the condition of that house when it was a nonprofit. So everyone who loved it, that house deteriorated over the years because there wasn't an influx of cash. So we will give you the information. I understand the concerns. A lot of what I heard was, absolutely relevant. But number one, who uses it and whether someone, a neighbor, gets to approve who is going to use it. If I rent out my single-family house and make a profit, am I no longer a good neighbor because I rented out and made a profit on my house? Is it illegal to make a profit? So that issue, I think, is a non-issue. And one other thing I wanted to clear up for the record, because I heard it mentioned, and I want to be very clear, my client was at a meeting, a public meeting, where he disclosed his plans to offer his facility for graduates who wanted to take a picture. He said it in presence of the full board, in front of the police, and in Mr. Cox's presence. No one told him he couldn't do it. He had no idea, as anyone who throws a graduation party, who throws a political fundraiser at their house, who throws any other kind of function at their house, had any other indication. It rained, so a lot of people came. There were issues, there were complaints. He was then told not to do it again, when issued for a graduation. The second, I was called by the attorney who told me that it was determined that it was illegal. I said there was nothing in writing that said what it was violating. I was provided with the violations. I spoke to Mr. Mitz. Mr. Mitz did not hold that event. So no further events were doing. So to say that anything dishonest happened or anything other than was fully disclosed in the record happened is once again just not true. We're here respecting this board. I understand there's questions, there's legitimate issues. We will provide those issues. We will provide clarification. But the application before you, what Mr. Mitz proposes to do is to have 8 to 10 independent seniors. This isn't a nursing home. It is a place where people can live as a group exactly as those other good folks live and be ambulatory, just staying over a village. There's a lot, and we'll clarify it in the record. And we appreciate the opportunity and appreciate the opportunity to give you that. The last thing I want to comment on, because I heard the word threat when we discussed the other uses. As you're well aware, we were required under the law to discuss those other uses and whether we could make a profit under them. So it wasn't as to threaten you to say, we're going to do this use. We were required by law to discuss and analyze those uses.
We're fully aware of this board, what your obligation is to establish a use variance and why you were discussing the other uses.
So in the interim, as we wait, we will supplement the record prior to your August meeting, if that's when you want to adjourn it to. And we will try to respond to the comments we heard from the public. We would invite any of those people who had a concern to discuss with Mr. Mitz, to give them a tour of the facility so they have a better indication. And we would offer the same to your board if you wanted to actually visit the facility, to just contact us and we'd be happy to show you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. I have a question. I'm not a Monroe resident. I'm wondering if I'm allowed to speak.
You're a what, I'm sorry?
I'm a Newburgh resident, and I'm wondering if I'm allowed to speak or offer my opinion in this setting.
Absolutely.
I
You don't
am.
have to be a
Awesome.
resident of the village. You'll have the right to take in any additional information that will be submitted between now and then. All the information that's submitted is available from the village zoning board clerk. You can call her up, you can come down, you can look at the files, you can look at the documents. So if you have any interest in do that, you can contact her and come look at the file. So anybody else have any comments for the time being? Yes.
Yeah, I'm Toby Shack, and I'm also not a resident, so I hadn't planned on speaking, but I
Just
did,
know your name, I'm sorry.
Toby, T-O-B-Y,
Yes?
Shack, S-C-H-A-C-K, and I live in Central Valley in a very old house. And I just wanted to say something about that. I spend a lot of time visiting around the sort of eastern portion of the United States, and what I tend to like to do is to stay in old homes as bed and breakfast or inns or something like that, because when you have an old house and when you want to preserve it, and this one is a very unique house and it is really beautiful, I highly recommend that everybody go in and see what he's done here to help preserve it. It is a lot of upkeep, and one of the ways that we can preserve the history of the locality is by finding ways to preserve them and to keep them going monetarily, as well as in a way that it will suit the character of the community. And so I would just hope that this board would take that into account in this proposal.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so we had talked about you submitting additional documentation with regard to the financial hardship, the dollars and cents proof, supplementing your statement with the invoices and all the other receipts to document those expenses are real.
What I would ask, now that I'm just talking to my client and thinking that we want to get you a comprehensive plan, if we put this off till the September meeting, that will allow us to get you more detailed information and submit it to you, so to give you a chance to review it before the meeting. I think it might be a greater benefit.
Okay. How does the board feel about putting this off till September instead of August, so they have adequate time to respond to our concerns and get us the documentation?
I have no problem with it.
That's fine.
I don't have any objection. Okay. But besides that, there are obviously a lot of concerns about how this facility is going to be run. And you're comparing it to the way the prior facility was run. I would think you would want to bring somebody in that's going to operate this facility and is going to tell us exactly how it's run, who the residents are, how they're chosen, how the facility works, how much staff is there, do the people drive, do they come and go? Just a minute, Your Honor. I would like to hear testimony exactly with regard to how this facility is going to work, to compare it to the prior facility. Okay. All right, so now let me turn.
This part of information available September 12th is a primary day in this facility.
I don't think an alternate location or.
And that, well, that's great.
We could move the day, we have the power to move the day. It's so far in advance.
We could move it, but this is the night that we meet, and I have other commitments for evening meetings on different days of the week, the first Thursday, the second Monday, the third Wednesday, the second Tuesday. So it's really not easy for me to move the meeting. So it would be now to either move it to October or keep it on August 8th. Is there any way you can do it to keep it on
It'd
August
probably be
8th?
easier, to be honest with you, to October. I don't want to come in and have someone say, if you want dollars and cents and, analysis, I don't know what people's schedules are, and you get into July and August, and even if we have someone, they may